really thankful that it happened.
I love nothing made me laugh harder this weekend than the idea that Vince McMahon was on that commissioner's call with the president of the United States.
Well, he's a commissioner. I mean,
I know. I understand.
The XFL too.
I understand he's the commissioner. Thank you, Stugotz, for nothing as usual. Yes, I understand.
Why would you include Vince? I mean, he's the only one who's giving us live sports right now.
Well, the whole thing is ridiculous.
Remember when they had a fake commissioner? What was his name? Like Jack Tunney or something like that, where it was just like an on-camera authority figure. And I remember being just rocked when I found out that Vince McMahon, the commentator, was actually the guy that was running WWE, and this guy was just like a fake president that they put up there.
Stugotz, the idea you have some people like Brian Windhorst is saying that more and more the NBA is resigned to losing a season, and Royce Young is out here saying that they're worried about 2 seasons, not worried about fixing 1 season. They're worried about 2 seasons. And meanwhile, you've got the President of the United States, according to reports, telling the commissioners in that commissioner call, football, I expect it to be back in September. I'm surprised he didn't say Easter. I don't know how he thinks he knows. I don't know how he thinks he knows when football is going to come back, when none of us seem to know anything about when this is actually going to die or how many people are going to die before this dies. Like the idea, the presumption that anyone could tell anyone in sports what's coming up seems foolhardy at best.
I think he's hopeful, like many people. The exception is he's the president of the United States and has to choose his words very carefully. But Dabo Swinney agrees with him. I mean, Dabo was the first one to say it. Dabo said football is starting on time. This is the USA. And that's what he said. Dabo.
Okay, we'll get to that sound in a second.
He said we were going to kick it in the teeth.
Yeah, that's what he said. Right now, the president is kicking us in the teeth. And this is an example of it, Stugotz, because I've got this story from the New York Post. And I don't know if you've seen what's happening in New York at 7 p.m. every night, right? You've heard about this, Stugotz, or no?
No, I have not.
Okay, at 7 p.m. every night, everybody in New York who can is opening up their windows and applauding healthcare workers who are headed into work. It sounds like the city is applauding them. People who aren't at their windows at 7 p.m. all of a sudden are summoned to their window because the noise is so distinctive, and they applaud for that actually might be 7 a.m. I'm not sure about that. I'll check that in a second. I don't know why 7 a.m. makes more sense to me, but they're applauding, and it sounds like the city is applauding. And I want to read this to you from the New York Post and ask your opinion on this, because the New York Post had an interesting story that buries a couple of very wealthy doctors who run Mount Sinai Health System, Kenneth Davis and the two of them, Arthur Klein, are getting buried by the New York Post. I'm just going to read this to you and get your thoughts here, because while heroic staffers beg for protective equipment and don garbage bags to treat coronavirus patients at a Mount Sinai hospital, 2 of the system's top executives are waiting out the public health catastrophe in the comfort of their Florida vacation homes, the Post has learned. Dr. Kenneth Davis, 72, the CEO of the Mount Sinai Health System, who pulled down nearly $6 million in compensation in 2018, is ensconced in his waterfront mansion near Palm Beach. Davis has been the Sunshine State for weeks and is joined by Dr. Arthur Klein, 72, president of the Mount Sinai Health Network, who owns an oceanfront condo in Palm Beach. As the duo work from home, the Upper East Side base hospital system seems to be imploding. And then there's a quote here from the head of the New York State Nurses Association saying, "How can you inspire confidence in your employees who are on the front lines of the epicenter that you have their best interest at heart when you are 1,000 miles away? Even more important, what are you doing to procure the PPE that is proven to save lives of caregivers and ultimately the patients we care for? We are not protected, and every day it is getting worse." Now, Davis had a comment, and the Post buries him by saying, reached at his 6-bedroom, 8-bathroom home by the Post Friday. Davis had some comments defending himself, but what are your thoughts before I get to, because Davis was angry when reached at his home. What are your thoughts before I read to you what it is that he says?
All right, this is without knowing if he has anyone in his family who has underlying health conditions, maybe, a grandparent, so I don't know any of that. But How could you disagree with the fact that this is terrible leadership? If you are in charge of big medical companies and your employees are working and risking their lives on a daily basis to help with this pandemic, how can you not be there on the front lines fighting with those employees, trying to help make this thing go away as quickly as possible?
So this is how he responds. Do you know that from the time I wake up, from the time I go to bed, I am totally engaged? Do you know that I get over 400 emails that I reply to, that on a good day it's almost every 90 seconds, and that on a bad day it's almost every minute, that I have teleconferencing with Zoom like constantly. When they don't have a Zoom, I'm on the phone with them. I mean, please. The other thing he said is because of his age, both of these doctors are they're in the riskiest group. They're saying that they were told by their own doctors to stay home because they're in their mid-70s. And the reason I bring up the question to you, Stugotz, is those people in New York who are applauding when they open their windows is because it's not normal to go risk your life for others. It's an extraordinarily brave thing. These healthcare workers who are heroes now all over our country and all over the globe who are risking their lives, I understand why we applaud them. I do wonder, Stugotz, if we were in their position in our mid-70s, would we behave any differently than the guys running the top of it? To expect someone to risk their life is a bit of an expectation, don't you think?
No, but to expect someone who is in charge, first off, they're all risking their lives, Dan. I understand the chief demo is older, and especially older men, okay? So I get that. But everyone going to work every day on the front lines, doctors and nurses, are risking their lives. And so, no, I don't understand this. If you're going to be in charge of this, then at least be physically in the state where your workers are having the most difficult time. And that state, obviously, right now is New York.
I agree that is how most people would react, myself included. I also wonder how we would react if we were the doctors and our own doctor had told us to stay home because we were more high risk than the other people involved. It's an easy thing to say what you're saying. It's an easy thing to agree with what you're saying. No one's going to take the side of the doctor sitting it out in his oceanside mansion. I just wonder, as I put it out to the audience, how many of you in your mid-70s with your doctor telling you to stay home after a lifetime spent in this business, working every day from home, but being told by your own doctor not to go, how many of you would go anyway? Because it's real easy to do that with someone else's life. And I wonder if any of us would do it with our own.
ESPN